So, what is selling? What is closing? These are two different elements in the sales process. And sometimes people are good salespeople, but they're not good closers or consistent closers. So there's two different mindsets, two different attitudes. I'm going to break it down for you, making sales very simple. Because once you understand these two different components and you make adjustments and improvements on one or both of them, you're going to see your sales increase exponentially. As some of you know, for me, it's always about mindsets or mindset. There's a lot of sales books out there that talk about the same thing. They give you a lot of information, but you don't need a lot of that information. You need to understand the selling mindset and the closing attitude and what are the differences. This is going to be an exciting, powerful topic and hopefully a very informative topic for you salespeople that could put your egos aside, keep an open mind, and see if this relates to you and you can make some changes to help improve your sales. For you entrepreneurs, small business owners, and just if you're looking to get a job with a high figure income, you're always selling. Welcome to the Paul Cruz Show. If you're watching this on YouTube or listening to it on YouTube, hit the subscription button below, hit the notification so that you can be aware of the new videos, content coming out. And also, if you like it, hit the like button and also share it with others. Now, let's dig into it. You have to understand, and this is my experience of 30 years in selling at every level. From a venture capitalist, raising money, taking companies public, doing private investment, handling a lot of real estate transactions with banks and investors over the years. And so selling is always two components. Is always selling and closing. I've experienced a lot of salespeople over the years where they have a good gift of gab. They're good storytellers. They know how to sell, but they don't know how to get that sell into a transaction. I was guilty of that once in my life till I corrected myself and realized that, I just wanted to hear myself talk, not realizing, but I understood that does happen. We get carried away as salespeople. Sometimes we all embellish because we want to be heard. But a professional salesman is a great listener. And why is that important? Because you could provide solutions. You could solve problems. Does that make sense? So let's dig into this topic. Selling is a mindset. The question is, what kind of mindset should a salesman have or the selling process should have? Does that make sense? That is the question. So there are different elements in selling. A salesperson, for me personally, in layman's term, should be a problem solver. The only way you can solve a problem is you got to ask the right questions to your prospect. You got to listen a lot. You got to be able to understand the situation and be able to tell a good story. Because a salesperson is a phenomenal storyteller. Nothing wrong with that. It's a mindset. You take facts, you take figures, you take objections, and you know how to handle with rebuttals. You take all of that, and that's the mindset of selling, or at least some of the mindset of selling. Also, the selling mindset or salesperson, what they do and should do is set the tone to the relationship. Make it about the customer or the potential customer than about yourself. But at the same time, you got to sell yourself to them because they have to buy into you in order for them to buy your product and services, right? Just think about it. There have been times, and I'm sure you experienced this as salespeople, where you presented a great sales pitch, you threw the kitchen sink at them, and they didn't buy from you, right? But then you find out later they went and bought from your competitors, right? Why? Because they didn't buy into you, number one. Number two is they wanted a cheaper price. But here's the third part about it. You also build a foundation on how you're going to tell your story. You build a foundation on how strong the relationship will be if he decides or she decides or they decide to buy from you. But how do you do that? The mindset of selling is you have to, first of all, from the get-go, have a perceived value. Because if the perceived value they have of you in the get-go or from the beginning, you're going to have an uphill battle to try to turn them around to get on the same track with you. So it's a mindset. Also, the mindset is you have to increase your value during the sales process. Does that make sense? You just have to be able to do that. Now, the way you do that is you have to be prepared mentally when you go into the sales presentation. And what I mean by prepared, that means, you cold call, you understand your rebuttals, you understand sales technique, you understand your customers, their industry, all the things that are important to be able to tell that story. And then when you tell a story, you better be able to offer solutions once you reveal to your prospect or your potential customer the problems they may have. They may not even be aware that they have a problem with their business. But your job is to be able to point that out like a doctor and a patient. Does that make sense? And there are about 2 or 3 levels of the selling process before you get into the closing. I won't talk about that right now, but I'll give you a few bullet points on it. First of all, you have to understand the art of cold calling. You got to develop that mindset. That's what I call boot camp of sales. It roughens you up. It toughens you up. It educates you to being a very strong closer and consistent. So selling is a mindset. Closing is an attitude. 2 different components. That's why in the call center business, you have a lot of openers that do what they call TOs, which means you turn over the call. Why? Because they know only how to go from point A to point B. They don't know how to get to the deal. Now, some of them convert into closers, but a majority of them stay as openers because they're afraid to ask for the order. And so because of that, they just don't move forward. Does that make sense? Now, what is closing? Closing, for me personally, is an attitude. Well, what kind of attitude? I call it the winner's attitude. Sometimes salespeople or in the selling process, people make excuses. They overtalk the sale, and that's a loser's mentality. Because if you work so hard to go from point A to point B, why won't you work just as hard to go to point C and close the deal? Just think about that. So what are the points of a closer's mindset? Number one is if you truly believe in your heart, in your gut, in your mind, that the customer or the prospect needs this product or services that you're offering them, and that it could solve their business problem, whether it's, financial, structure, sales process, whatever it may be. If you understand and you believe and you're convinced, then you have to persuade them that they need to see, that they need to take ownership of what you're offering them because it's in their best interest. Well, what happens is sometimes there's a thing called resistance level. It's a stock terminology where a stock trades at a certain price for a long time and it doesn't break that barrier. That's called the resistance level. What happens is when it's time to ask for the order, instead of asking for the order because you've earned the order or you earned the business, you start to overtalk the sale. You start to say things that you shouldn't even talk about. And so psychologically, that turns off the customer because you don't even realize that they're ready to be closed and they want to be closed. Now, most people don't like to be sold. A lot of people have a bad feeling about salespeople because it has a bad connotation, being a salesman. It's your job to eliminate that concern. So if they don't like to be sold, even though we're all buying and selling, right? Then they have to be persuaded. You have to convince them that they need to take ownership. Nobody wants to feel like they're buying something unless they choose to go out and buy it. Because remember this, customers, you and I, everyone we speak with on the phone, every prospect we're soliciting, however way you're soliciting them, they either want something or they need something. Period. End of story. There's no other way we buy. If they want something, it's emotional, it's an easier sale to make. If they need something, it's more of a logical, it's more of a battle, which is okay. You got to get them from needing it to wanting it because they need it anyway. Does that make sense? So, also a closer gets the deal done. How do they do that? They push when they're being resisted. When they're getting objections that's irrelevant to the sales process, is a way they trying to find out, they meaning the prospect, trying to get out of the deal because they know they're about to be sold, but they don't like to be sold. So you have to persuade them. How do you persuade them? With passion, with excitement, enthusiasm, conviction, all of the above. A closer, they always stand strong on principles. Now, there's different types of principle. For me, it's morally principle, being honest, truthful, walking away if you need to, but also sales principles and techniques that work, where you don't have to compromise and lie and exaggerate. You also, well, at least for me, a closer rarely drops his price or her price when they know that what they're offering is valuable. So let me give you an example. I used to work for a company in Las Vegas, and I was an affiliate, so I was building my sales team there. And we had this product could be ranged from $100 to $1,000. The max was $1,000. I always presented the $1,000 because I know the value that was in that. And I rarely drop my price. If I drop my price, I do it strategically within the sales process. There were a lot of salespeople or telemarketers that would just drop like a bad habit. So what they did at that point, they devalued their value. Because if you're pitching with all your heart, all your soul, and you're convinced, and you have enthusiasm, your passion, conviction, you're persuasive, and all of a sudden, because a little resistance, you just drop the price. Let's say the package is $5,000 and you drop it to $3,000. Well, that's a $2,000 difference. What is a customer going to think? Well, if you dropped it $2,000, it can't be worth that much. So they very rarely drop the price. Also, a closer earns the business because they push. They have solutions. They have confidence. They're convinced that the customer needs to own it. Not buy it, own it. And the customer or the potential customer has to be able to see not only the picture that you're painting as a storyteller or as a salesperson on the selling process, but they have to be able to feel and know and see that it's a win-win situation. Because remember this, the customer's number one priority is not you, it's them. What's in it for me? Meaning them. Nothing wrong with that. You just have to understand it. That's all the closer understands. So, and when they build a win-win relationship, that leads to other sales, from referrals to good reviews to a testimony and things like that. Especially, with all the social media now, people are educated, but you still have to go through the process. So, selling is a mindset. How is your selling mindset? Are you training your sales mindset the right way? Or are you just going through the motions thinking your shit don't stink? How's your closing? Are you a closer? And a closing is not just getting a deal. I've seen a lot of people close deals, in the company I used to work for in Las Vegas. Then next thing you know, 60, 70% of them were chargebacks. Because closing a deal means the customer, when they get off the phone or they get off a text message or email message or video conference, whatever the case may be, however you solidify the deal, when they get off that, they're feeling good. They brag about it. They're excited. They can't wait to tell their business partner or their neighbor or their friend, hey, I got this, I got that, right? That's closing. In the company I worked for in Las Vegas, in 3.5 years that I was there, I had 2 chargebacks. One of them was chargeback because the client was looking for me to ask me questions, and somebody that took the call gave him a bad attitude. The other person just had bad intentions from the get-go. But that's what closing is once they give you the form of payment, however it may be, that sticks because they took ownership. So before we go, again, if you're listening to this on YouTube, hit the subscription button below. Also tap the notification. If you like it, give a thumbs up and also share this with others. But till we speak again, I want to thank you all for being part of the Paul Cruz Show. And remember this, selling is a mindset. Closing is an attitude. Till we speak again, I say goodbye for now.